everyone, so this here is Dizzy, and he is a BN-1. When I first received him, he was not working at all. He would not charge when plugged in, and he would not show any sign of life when started up. This is pretty typical for BN-1s because they use these really nasty NiCad batteries that are basically all covered in corrosion by now. This is actually from another BN-1, but this one corroded so badly that it damaged the connector to the board, and these just popped right off. So I brought his battery into Batteries Plus Bulbs to have it repacked for me, and you can't see too well with this wrap on it here, but when they took the wrap off of his, it was just solid rust and corrosion inside. There was basically none of the original batteries left. But Batteries Plus Bulbs actually did a really good job of repacking it for me. They only charged me $20, and they actually gave me a really nice repacked battery. These ones are pretty simple to repack, so if you have experience with that sort of thing, you can repack BN-1 batteries at home as well. I brought it to Batteries Plus Bulbs because I don't. So after that, I tried booting him up, and I got sort of the dreaded ER message. And what that means is you press power, and the letters ER appear on the eyes with, and then basically just power shuts off immediately. This occurs because the little CMOS battery in there, this is a battery that is basically supposed to keep the memory saved when the main battery dies or is removed, but these, of course, are also all dead and corroded by now. So basically, he couldn't recover his old memory, so I had to hard reset him, which involves holding down the power button, giving a quick press to the reset switch, and keeping the power button held for 5 more seconds until you hear a beep. So after he was reset, he started up, but things were not right. He would not move his waist or right arm or left arm at all. I let it go for a little bit, and he began to move them again, but they really were not moving correctly at all. They were thrashing between the different extremes of their positions. So this told me that there was some sort of potentiometer problem. At first, I thought that the potentiometers might be dirty and that they might have corrosion on them, because this battery here, it plugs in right above where the wires for the 3 potentiometers plug in. And if you don't know what a potentiometer is, it is basically something that tells a servo what position to move to. And if the potentiometer is not working, the servo does not know what position to go to, so it may not move at all, or it may just thrash randomly like this guy was doing. I thought it might be corroded because this battery had spilled corrosion everywhere and had actually damaged its own connector here because it was so corroded. I took this battery out so it couldn't cause any more damage because it was not working and it was not doing anything good for him. I first thought that the potentiometers might have been corroded. When I looked at the potentiometers, they were actually relatively clean, as were the connectors for them, thankfully. Because it is so easy to get those damaged on BN-1s, and many BN-1s are no longer salvageable because the corrosion has just spilled into the connectors for all the potentiometers. So that was actually not too bad news because they were not horribly damaged by corrosion, but I didn't know why they weren't working. So I actually compared him to a parts BN-1 that I have and some BN-1s owned by other people online, and I realized that the potentiometers were plugged into the board in the wrong order. They're supposed to be plugged in the order right hip, waist, left hip. His were plugged in right hip, left hip, waist. So someone must have taken him apart in the past and put him back together wrong. So I swapped back the wires, and he was much better. But he still wasn't perfect because his left arm was actually still off in its position. It was moving, and it was moving correctly, but it was behind the other arm, and it was sort of dragging around and causing him some problems when he was trying to move. So I opened up the gearbox, and inside there's this one gear that has a bit of orange grease on it, so it's easy to tell apart from the rest. And the potentiometers for each of the different servos in these guys sit right behind those gears. And basically, I thought that the gear must have been knocked out of position. So I turned it back just slightly so I could get it into what I thought was probably the right position. And I booted him back up, and you can see how he is now. And BN-1's can act autonomously, but they also move through gesture, so